It is time to talk about Ivy League basketball. And who better to do that than Jenn Hatfield? The answer is no one. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
Ogunbowale for the win.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Hi, everyone, and happy Thursday to you. I am Howard Megdal, host of Locked On Women's Basketball. I want to thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. Over 170,000 of you showed up for us the way we show up for you 6 days a week. Make sure you subscribe. We're actually really close to a round number of subscribers over on YouTube. If you have an opportunity, go hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Let's cross that threshold ahead of the 2024 new year. And of course, it is not just me. It is the incredible team over at The Next, where we cover the past, present, and future of women's basketball. Over 100 reported pieces every month. Make sure you're subscribing. $9 a month, $72 a year. thenexthoops.com. It is everything you're looking for in women's basketball. And somebody who occupies many of those roles, and I'm just going to take a second to have a massive shout out. The thing that I say all the time is you can set your watch to Jenn Hatfield. What Jenn Hatfield does for us at The Next as managing editor, she covers the Washington Mystics with distinction and has for half a decade. She covers the Ivy League in a way, I would argue, Ivy League women's basketball has never been covered. She writes the stories we love to read about siblings. We would not be anywhere without Jenn Hatfield. And so, Jenn, thank you for joining us today to talk about the Ivy League. Let's dive right in by talking about the fact that everyone I speak to, when I bring up, hey, the Ivy's really deep this year, it's really interesting, who's going to win? Everyone says, look, it's going to be Princeton unless I see otherwise or I'm proven otherwise. Is that how you see it?
You know, Princeton's looked really good in the non-conference, and I don't think there's any reason not to peg them as the favorite, but I don't think it's a done deal. I think a lot of folks, like you said, know the Princeton name, know not to bet against Carla Berube, but you know, Columbia and Harvard are going to make a really fun top three race in there. And I think that's going to be really exciting. I don't think it's necessarily Princeton's league, 100%. I think there are really good challengers this year.
It is a fascinating thing. And I agree with you with the challengers, although obviously without Harmony Turner, things change for Harvard. We'll get to that. But I've had the chance to see Princeton in person. I am, as always, impressed. I was impressed in a way that Carla Berube was not. She was upset about the way in which Princeton was playing defensively. And again, if you look at it, their opposing points per 100 possessions are 161st in the country right now. Now, part of that is the schedule that they were playing. They went up against UCLA and the efficiency machine, that is Lauren Betts. They've played Indiana. They had to go at Rhode Island. Those are your three losses. They have some nice wins, too. Big wins over Villanova, Rutgers, Seton Hall. It's Oklahoma, which is a really big one. But, how much of this is a question of, geez, once they get into Ivy play and a lot of the newcomers especially get used to Carla's defensive schemes, that's going to change. And how much of it is, all right, this Princeton team, which has a lot of strengths and can really score, maybe is not at the same level defensively as what we're used to from the Tigers in the past.
I think it's the former. I'm surprised about Princeton's defensive stats right now, that they're not quite as up there as we've been expecting, which is, as they have been, rather. Like, that's a pretty high bar. They've been elite defensively for all of Carla's tenure.
Mm-hmm. 8th in the country in defensive points per possession last year.
Yeah, and that was like a low watermark.
Right.
So I think that this team is going to figure it out, turn it on. I don't think we're going to be talking about, what's wrong with Princeton's defense 2 months from now.
Yeah, no, I think that's reasonable. And I do think it's worth pointing out that there is this big two when it comes to scoring. And obviously, everyone understood what Caitlin Chen brings to the table as coming back after being Ivy Player of the Year last year. But you wrote a terrific piece about Madison St. Rose. Give me a second. I need to see what state is she from? Okay, it seems like she is from New Jersey, which should not be a surprise to anyone. And she seems to have come into her own as clearly a 1B to Caitlin Chen's 1A. I mean, they're virtually identical in points per game. Madison is averaging, or rather shooting north of 40% from three to this point. What did you learn about what makes Madison St. Rose so good, so young, just a sophomore this year?
Yeah, I think she's really kind of finding her groove, finding her confidence. She spoke with me about how last year, she was playing off the ball, obviously, because Caitlin Chen is such an outstanding point guard. And Madison wasn't necessarily used to that. And so she wasn't always in rhythm because she didn't have the ball in her hands. A point guard often will get into rhythm by dribbling the ball and finding that, getting herself going that way. And so she was catching the ball and wasn't quite ready because she wasn't used to having to be ready without orchestrating the offense.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just kind of a mindset shift. And then she also had these seniors around her and sometimes, fell into the freshman trap of, I'm just a freshman. Maybe I should pass to these seniors. And so she didn't always, have the full confidence to take the big shot. And this year she's got a year under her belt. She's teaching the freshmen, which is reinforcing things for her, she said. And she just knows that they're counting on her to score, that they need her to score. I talked to Carla Ruby about this, and she said, it's not that I told Madison I needed her to score more. I just needed her to shoot every time she was open. And that's led to her scoring more.
And again, that combination of she just seems to have extra length in her arms. She's super bouncy. There are just all these ways in which she just not only can look to score every time she's open, but how easily she's able to do it. She's able to finish through contact, seems to be doing a little bit of everything. What is kind of the next step even for her as you see it?
You've said it, Howard. I should let you take this one, but she can be an Ivy League Player of the Year. I mean, at this point, she's probably making it harder for Caitlin Chen to repeat, just because it's like, how do you differentiate between those two? I think it'll be interesting to see. Caitlin Chen's going to graduate this year and then go be really helpful to some Power 5 team as a grad transfer.
Mm-hmm.
So then does Madison St. Rose pick up the point guard duties when she leaves? Does that go to someone else and she stays off the ball? So I'll be curious in the coming years. I think she's a great scorer off the ball right now. And does she add kind of that on the ball stuff that she was kind of used to doing, she said, kind of by default in high school?
Yeah, it will be fascinating to see. And yes, that is true. I am on the record as saying, and I think this was my first time seeing her, I said last year, she is a future Ivy Player of the Year. So I stand by that prediction. I feel more comfortable with it than ever. When you look at their keys to Princeton, we're obviously talking Caitlin, we're talking Madison, human rebound. Ellie Mitchell, of course, does everything on the boards and is remarkable to watch. Sky Belker really seems to be an X factor. Do you think Sky is ultimately potentially the difference maker for Princeton to repeat as Ivy champs for the 37th time?
I think she will be huge. I think you could also argue that the 5 spot for Princeton is going to be really important, or if you put Ellie at the 4, then who that bigger center is, because Ellie Mitchell, for all her rebounding prowess, is only 6'1". So, who Carla puts in alongside her could definitely be an X factor. I mean, we saw it with Chet Nowitzki late in the Villanova game, getting a crucial rebound there, and got, I think, 8 boards against Oklahoma, which I didn't even notice for like 2 days because Ellie Mitchell got approximately 1 million. And then you've seen, Parker Hill, Paige Morton are bigger bodies that can be effective there. So I think that spot's going to be really key. But yes, you're right. I think Sky Belker and the development of the other freshmen who are big in the rotation, I think all those things are really going to, determine does Princeton win the Ivy title and kind of how comfortably.
I got to shout out Parker Hill because I saw her in her breakout game in that double overtime classic against Seton Hall when she played her career high in minutes 29 minutes, 18 seconds. She immediately beat that by playing 29-44 against Rhode Island. Has been a critical part of that rotation, has been scoring off the bench, grabbing rebounds as well, blocking shots. Parker Hill is really making a difference for this team. It's been a lot of fun to watch. So we're going to talk obviously more about Princeton in the months to come, but the Ivy League, as we've talked about, is a lot more than Princeton. Coming up in segment 2, we're going to talk about Columbia and Harvard as well. This is Locked On Women's Basketball. But first, here to talk to you guys about eBay Motors, and they're doing a really interesting thing. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. So whether you're preparing for like daily fantasy or just scouring the waiver wire, trying to find that next advantage, every week they're going to provide players that are a guaranteed fit on your roster. Ooh, you might even call it eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Players of the Week. Now, he's got some real interesting ones. He's got Tari Eason, he's got James Wiseman, he's got Malachi Branham, but the one I want to highlight, and Jen, you're not going to hate this, is Grayson Allen, Duke's own Grayson Allen. Grayson Allen's doing some really interesting things. So first of all, Grayson started every game so far this year, and Bradley Beal is out again, as he so often is. So Allen is not only shooting a career best 46% from three, that's up from 40 for his career. You can continue to see him getting strong minutes and a nice increased usage rate to pair with that efficiency over at least the next few weeks. So Josh Lloyd is from Locked On Fantasy Basketball is going to help you win your fantasy championship. eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. And let's be clear about this, friends. I don't know anything about cars, but that's okay because eBay Motors does. They have 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. So you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. That much I know. I want my car to run. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack, bumpers, whatever your car needs, eBay Motors has them. They have this little green check mark that signifies eBay Guaranteed Fit. So I don't have to guess because I don't know. eBay does it for me. It's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back at a reduced rate than you'd be paying over at the mechanic. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions apply. So as we ponder, and I looked into this ahead of the show just to get ready, and there are not, in fact, just one team in the Ivy League. There are, is it 8? Do I have that right? Is it 8 teams, Jen?
There are 8.
Remarkable. So that gets lost sometimes, but we have to talk about it. And the place we have to start is everybody's favorite up-and-coming program, a program that, frankly, in most other leagues would be going through a victory tour as champions, and that is Columbia. And what Coach Meg Griffith is doing at Columbia is remarkable. I have been on the record. Coach has been on the program. We've talked about the fact Columbia should have been an NCAA tournament team last year. Should have been. Instead, they were at the Final Four, but by at the Final Four, I mean on TV at the Final Four, where Jen and I and a group of people at the Next watched them take on Kansas in the NIT final. This year, maybe we're looking at 2-bid Ivy. I know the schedule gets a little difficult. Do you think that Columbia did enough in the non-conference to get that at-large bid, or do you think it really does come down to somebody's going to have to win that Ivy League tournament to get that bid this year?
You know, I'm no bracketologist, but I do think it's going to be tough. And before I jump into Columbia, I got to apologize to Chet Nowicki because I shortchanged her. I looked it up at the break. She had 10 rebounds against Oklahoma. So just want to correct that so I don't get any angry emails from Princeton fans.
Apologies.
As far as Columbia goes, they scheduled aggressively in the non-conference. They had a great non-conference schedule. They got a win over Villanova. They got a win over Seton Hall. They actually went 3-0 against the Big East. The Ivy League as a whole did great against the Big East. They had a game against Florida in the Bahamas that Florida won on a buzzer beater that if you watch there was a clock issue and it shouldn't have counted. But
Right.
so that one might stick in their craw a little bit when it comes time for NCAA tournament selection. So I'm not sure. I think it'll be tough to make the case. Their net ranking is kind of within range right now, but
71 as of Monday. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll see how, the Ivy League schedule holds up. I think getting at least one win over Princeton will help a lot in that respect. It's very different if you're looking for an at-large with no wins against Princeton versus a win against Princeton. So we'll see. And we'll also see, maybe some of those losses that Columbia has, age a little bit better as those teams start picking up wins in conference and raising their net and that sort of thing. So, I don't know. I think I would feel better if they had, another quality win, 2 more quality wins under their belt.
That is about where I fall on it. I think obviously going through the Big East the way they have was significant. You just look at that the rest of the way. Princeton is a potential top 50 net win. The only other top 100 they're going to be playing, though, is Harvard, which is 89 at this point. And so the math starts to get difficult. We are seeing improvement throughout the Ivy Conference, the Ivy League Conference, which is going to help a good bit. But it's a challenge. It is a challenge for them to get there. And of course, it just sets up the extra drama at the tournament, which I assume they hold every year at the Palestra, right? If you have the Palestra in the Ivy League, you got to take advantage of that. It's historic. It's at the Palestra every year, right? That's what they do.
Well, it used to be, and we have no idea what they're doing after this year. But this year it will be actually at the home of the Columbia Lions, which is a fun little wrinkle to consider when you're thinking about, securing NCAA tournament berths.
I don't hate that. I love that gym. Listen, I love Jadwin Gym. I love where Yale plays. I think these are beautiful places.
Levites Pavilion at Harvard, very nice.
All true. The Big East on the men's side has played at Madison Square Garden for 40 years. That's worked out exceptionally well for them. I think you find a single destination. I am not just saying that because Jonathan Tannenwald is a friend of the program. I legitimately believe this in my own right. Come at me. I'm ready for emails. You can at me.
I would be fine if the single site came down to DC every year personally.
Well, yes, it would also be an easier ride. That is very true. But I'm saying even if the Palestra were in California, given what the Palestra is, I think you take advantage. But we digress. Let's talk Columbia, which is going to host, and it's a big deal, like you said. And you know who else is a big deal is Abbey Hsu. And I keep getting texts from WNBA folks every time I go to an Ivy League game asking me about Abbey. Abbey is taking it to another level this year. She's being asked to do more. A much higher usage rate, goes from about 24 to 29, but it doesn't matter. Her field goal percentage has gone up. She's making more than half of her twos now. We don't even need to talk about how incredible she is from beyond the arc, but she is automatic. What are you seeing from Abbey this year that's allowing her to take, to me, pole position in terms of Ivy Player of the Year at this point?
Yeah, if the season ended today, I think she's your Player of the Year, and I think it's pretty cut and dry with no disrespect to Caitlin Chen or any of the other candidates.
Or Madison.
She's been fantastic. Columbia is a really young team. Megan Griffith has told us, they might not be as good as last year's team right now, but by March she expects them to be. And that's pretty high praise for a team that has 6 freshmen and 2 transfers who are new this year. That's a lot of new pieces. And so Abbey, the 7 seniors departed off of last year's team. Abbey remains, and she is kind of filling a lot of this void. As Megan has said, she has the space now to do more. She can grab more rebounds because Caitlin Davis isn't grabbing them all. She can do all these things, and she's really kind of embraced that and has added to her all around game. Her rebounding is up. She's driving to the rim for layups and getting fouled way more than I've seen from her. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but she's diversified her shot selection tremendously, and that's something she had worked on in previous years. It's not like she hadn't been working on that, but she's taken it to a whole new level. Her defense is better. Her communication is better. She's just, as Megan would say, she's playing like a senior. She's just really kind of putting the cherry on top of a fantastic career. She's now the Ivy League's all-time leader in career three-pointers, and she's got a lot of room left, and she's just, she's chasing down that Columbia all-time leading scorer record, men's and women's, and she's just looked phenomenal doing it.
It is a remarkable team. We're going to get a little more into Columbia. We're going to talk Harvard, and we're going to talk about those 4 spots, because to me, it's real interesting, and a lot is up for grabs when it comes to the Ivy League in segment 3. But first, here to talk to you about BetterHelp. And this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. So look, therapy is vitally important when it comes to helping to organize our own thoughts. Whether we're going through something, everybody's going through something, or something of significance is important to you to try and figure out, whether it's at work, whether it's personal. Therapy, it's important. It's important to be in touch with how we're doing it. And you don't always have the ability to do it alone. That's where BetterHelp comes in. If you're thinking of starting therapy, you can give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire, and then you get matched with a licensed therapist. If you like the therapist, amazing. If not, you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. In the season of giving, give yourself what you need with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. So as we think about Columbia, and, to me, one of the most fascinating things about the machine that Coach Griffith has built is how seamlessly it moves from the older players to the younger players. And we're seeing that right now play out with sisters, which is, I know, very near to your heart. Take me through what you see. And of course, go over, listeners at home, to thenexthoops.com to read, Jen, about this, but about the Henderson sisters.
Yeah, the Henderson sisters are so fun to watch. I could watch them every day, all day. They're fantastic. They're not exactly the same player, but they're both fitting this kind of same mold of gritty, versatile, put your head down, get it done. One of the things that I always think about when it comes to Kitty, who's the junior starting point guard right now for them, is when she was a freshman. Meg told me, if I need something done in a game, no matter what it is, like late in a game, I need something done, I put Kitty Henderson in the game as a freshman. Mm-hmm. Like, that's incredible. And she's just continued to do that. And Fliss, her sister, who's a freshman guard, and has been starting alongside her lately, same thing, like just blue collar, gets after it. What's better than one Henderson sister to wreak havoc, 2 Henderson sisters to wreak havoc? They've just really kind of embodied the grit factor that Columbia needs, and having a freshman come in and kind of supplement that is really remarkable. And Kitty has gotten better too over her years, and is now a captain, has stepped up her scoring. So really, they've been phenomenal. They've been really fun to watch.
The thing I love is you can look at Fliss's numbers, and they're really similar, especially from a rate stat perspective, to what her Kitty was as a freshman. And sisters are different. I have 2 children. They're very different. We can't assume one will follow in the footsteps of the other, but it's very easy to see, all right, so this is where they are wreaking havoc together for the next 2 seasons, and then Fliss comes and takes over. And, I'm sure that Coach will have some players coming up behind them, but it is delightful to see together. I do want to talk about Harvard in the context of what they are capable of, but it's also important, I think, that we acknowledge what they've lost. And Harmony Turner, one of the Player of the Year preseason, if not favorites, but in the conversation, being lost for the season is such a big deal. They've dropped 2 straight. Harmony goes out during that game against Michigan, and Michigan, that was going to be a tough lift anyway. I would argue that Harvard, under different circumstances, that is to say fully healthy, might have been the favorite to win the two that followed, especially that game against Boston University. How worried should Harvard be? And that's just specifically within the context of only the top four make it, about earning that top four spot and getting to the tournament at Columbia this March.
I am worried about Harvard in the context of contending for, the regular season title. Coming into the season, I thought they could challenge for that regular season title, and we're kind of neck and neck with Princeton, because I think that Harmony Turner, Lola Mullaney, and Elena Rodriguez are as good or better as any trio in the Ivy League. That's just a phenomenal inside-outside group with Turner and Mullaney on the perimeter, and then Rodriguez really anywhere she wants to go at 6'2". But Harmony Turner is their leader. She often runs the point, sometimes is off the ball. So she kind of stirs the drink for them. She's a first-team All-Ivy performer. So she's like, you cannot overstate that loss. And so I'm definitely worried about them from the perspective of winning the Ivy League. I'm not super worried about their ability to make it to the tournament. I just think that their seeding will potentially not be quite as good as they would have wanted, or as it would have been with Turner.
So you don't have a hot take here. This is disappointing. I was hoping we would have the hot take of who are the two teams that could potentially overtake Harvard. But I'm going to put you on record as saying, okay, Harvard's going to make it. But let's say, who are the two biggest challenges to fight for those 3 and 4 spots, if we assume for the moment Princeton, Columbia are somewhere in 1 and 2 between the two of them?
Yeah, I think kind of the pole position for that 4 spot right now, I would put Harvard at 3.
Mm-hmm.
That could change, but right now, if I'm making predictions, I'm gonna. Here's a little bit of a hot take for you. I'm gonna slide Brown into that number 4 spot. They are on the rise. I've been seeing it for the past year plus from them.
Early in on Brown. I remember us having a conversation early last season where you said, hey, I'm seeing things that are different out of Brown, and that has come to pass.
Yeah, I also think Penn has a shot at making that 4 spot for sure. We'll see if Yale can kind of turn things around. They've had a really bumpy non-conference, but they also have a first-team All-Ivy caliber player in point guard Jenna Clark, who is literally their everything. So, don't count out Jenna Clark and her sheer power of will. But right now, if I'm picking right now, I'm going to go with Brown.
I think that's a very reasonable perspective. And the last thing is just, I know it's a thing you're at work on right now, Dartmouth with Linda Cimino as the new head coach. What are you seeing from them so far? It seems like, and you have tweeted about this, we've talked about it, seems like some early shoots here, justifying some renewed optimism that you hear across the board. Courtney Banghart, proud Dartmouth alum, was very excited about what Coach Sim was doing early on.
Yeah, Dartmouth has been in a tough spot for a couple of years. They won 5 games total over the previous 2 full seasons. Mm-hmm. They've won 5 already, and today they're going for a 6th. So, the results have been there. Their strength of schedule is really not strong right now, but it's what they've needed to kind of teach the players how to win. That's cliche, but it's really what they needed. They've gone from a place of not really knowing if they could win to now being confident that they can win games and that they can move the needle a little bit in the Ivy League. It's gonna be a kind of a long build. I'm not expecting them to suddenly make a giant leap when it comes to Ivy League play. I think they'll take their lumps, but the thing that jumps out is looking at their numbers. I just did a deep dive the other day. Their offensive numbers are pretty much the same as they were last year. And, you can look at that glass half full or half empty, but the thing that jumps out is their defensive numbers are a lot better. And again, strength of schedule, all that's valid. They're going to have tougher tests in the Ivy League, but they also have a first-year head coach. They're learning the way that she wants to play defense still. They're still, kind of putting all their pieces together and developing chemistry. So to have that kind of improvement on the defensive end so far, especially, inside the paint, inside the arc, that's really where the bulk of their improvements are, I think is significant. And I think that, that bodes well for their ability to kind of build through the Ivy League, because I think in most cases you do want to build behind that defense.
You're going to find out right away some things about that Dartmouth team. They open at home for the first three, but it's Brown, Penn, Princeton. That is going to be quite a gauntlet to give us a sense of what they are capable of doing. Well, Jenn Hatfield, it is always delightful to talk to you. I can't stress enough to everyone, if you love what we do here, Jenn Hatfield is such a driving force behind it. And we're so lucky to work with her every single day. To our listeners, thank you for being part of everything we've done. This is my last show of 2023. I will, of course, be back with you in 2024. It is not our last show because we have an incredible team. The great Jackie Powell is joined by Isabel Rodriguez tomorrow to talk about some of the best stories, the biggest stories we've covered here at Locked On Women's Basketball and over at the Nats. We will continue to be with you right through the end of 23, and we have some really big plans for 2024 as well. So until then, I am Howard Megdal, wishing all of you a happy holiday season, safe travels to wherever you're getting to, and another year of amazing women's basketball to come.
Ogunbowale for the win.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.